A former Navy SEAL watched an aging German shepherd shelter a rejected puppy from larger dogs. As staff prepared to transfer the old shepherd, the puppy clung to the veteran's leg, begging. So the Navy SEAL adopted both dogs and brought the unlikely pair home to his winter cabin. The old shepherd stayed withdrawn and sorrowful, while the puppy turned the cabin into joyful chaos. Then a note marked, "Do not scan," exposed a microchip tied to 4 missing littermates. When the puppy vanished in a blizzard, why did the old shepherd's trail end at tire tracks? Stay with this story to the end. Please like and subscribe for more journeys of loyalty and healing. By 7 that morning, the wind had already found every loose piece of metal at Sentinel Ridge. Cole Barrett was halfway down the East Kennel Row when one outer panel slammed against its frame. The sound cracked through the cold and stopped him where he stood. For a second, the kennel disappeared. Bent metal, dust in his mouth, a high ringing where the world should have been. A gloved hand caught the front of his vest and pulled. Dylan was close, saying something Cole could no longer hear. Cole? Nothing. Cole. He looked down. Snow around brown combat boots, a black tactical watch on his left wrist, chain link kennel, Gray Pine Valley. Cole let out one slow breath. Hinge caught the wind. The young handler beside him, Luis, glanced at the panel, then at Cole. He was smart enough not to argue. Cole pulled the panel shut and checked the latch. At 46, he was tall and hard-built, with short dark brown hair graying at the temples, a trimmed salt and pepper beard, and the straight-backed economy of a man who had spent years in uniform. His camouflage field shirt was rolled to the forearms, matching cargo pants tucked over worn brown combat boots. Before Sentinel Ridge, Cole had been a Navy SEAL. Almost nobody there knew much about Dylan Reese, the younger teammate Cole had treated like a brother, or the mission Dylan had not come home from. Dogs made silence about the past easier. They did not care where Cole had served. They cared whether his hands were steady. A blur of sable fur shot between his boots. Cole stepped back. The puppy skidded across packed snow, recovered, then looked over his shoulder as if the ground had moved without permission. "Finn," Luis called. Finn ignored him. The 6-week-old German shepherd had tried to join 2 older puppies near the socialization fence. One turned broadside and blocked him. The other gave a sharp warning bark. Finn considered this for perhaps half a second, then fled with all 4 oversized paws, working faster than the rest of him. He did not run toward Luis. He ran toward the rehabilitation yard. Major lay beneath the roofed section beside the fence, black and tan coat heavy against pale concrete. Age had silvered his muzzle and the fur around his eyes. His right ear stood straight, the tip of the left folded slightly outward. Finn ducked under Major's neck as if he had reserved the space. Major opened one eye. Finn stepped on his front paw, then dragged a short rope toy across his tail. Major stared at him for 3 long seconds and lowered his head again. Cole almost smiled. "Still don't understand why he lets that one do anything," Luis said. "Maybe he doesn't either." A young shepherd mix approached too quickly. Finn stopped chewing. Major rose. No growl, no charge. Major simply placed his body between Finn and the other dog. Finn vanished behind one foreleg. The younger dog slowed, read the posture, and moved away. Major sat back down. Cole watched. Major had been at Sentinel Ridge almost 11 months. Before that, he had spent years doing search and rescue work with Harlan Voss, a handler known across Gray Pine County for finding lost hikers. In weather most people stayed home in. When Harlan died after a short illness, his family tried to keep Major. They lasted 4 months. The old dog did not destroy the house or threaten anyone. He simply stopped joining life inside it. Sentinel Ridge had taken him because there had been nowhere else suited to him. Now Sentinel Ridge was running out of places, too. Rachel Danner found Cole near the indoor assessment room an hour later. Her auburn hair was tied low beneath a charcoal knit cap, and a dark green work vest was zipped over her shirt. "I need Major's review before lunch." "You moved the deadline. The East heater failed again. We've got 6 usable runs instead of 10, and Pine County called about 2 incoming dogs." "Fix the heater." Rachel gave him a flat look. "With what money?" Cole said nothing. She softened slightly. "Willow Creek has 1 senior opening. If he qualifies, they can take him Friday." Willow Creek Senior K-9 Home was not a dumping ground. Heated floors, good staff, a veterinarian on call. That made the problem harder, not easier. Cole went into the assessment room. Major watched him enter but didn't move. Cole started with simple things: leash acceptance, response to a new handler, recovery after a door closed, interest in food. Major tolerated Cole clipping on the leash. When Luis took the line, Major planted his feet. Luis loosened it and offered cooked chicken. Major turned his head away. "No pressure," Cole said. A door shut in the hall. Major's eyes went to the exit at once. Cole noted it. Not panic, not aggression, orientation. They tried a movement. Major followed Cole 2 steps, then stopped when Finn barked beyond the wall. Through the interior window, Cole saw a staff member carrying Finn toward another room while the puppy area was cleaned. Major's breathing changed. Faster. Shallower. His weight shifted toward the door. "Bring Finn back where he can see him." Luis frowned. For the test? For the dog. A minute later, Finn appeared behind the glass, occupied with attacking the corner of a rubber mat. Major saw him, his shoulders lowered, his breathing slowed. Cole felt something tighten in his chest. He knew that pattern. Make the world smaller. Keep one thing inside it. Call that enough. After Dylan, Cole had done it with work, then the cabin, then routine. Coffee at the same hour, tools in the same order, doors checked twice. No friendships complicated enough to lose. He looked at Major. The old dog had not stopped caring. He had reduced the number of things he was willing to care about. Finn flopped onto his side behind the glass. Major lay down. Cole ended the test. At his desk, he opened Major's evaluation. The old wording read, "Senior dog, low engagement, limited placement potential." Cole deleted the last 2 lines. He typed, "Demonstrates selective social attachment. Protective positioning remains controlled. Environmental monitoring is high but recoverable. Engagement improves when trusted social anchor is present. Recommend additional observation before permanent senior placement." Rachel read it beside him. "You're asking for more time." "Yes. More time doesn't create kennel space." "I know. He may still have to go." Cole looked through the office window. Major lay in the rehabilitation yard. Finn was asleep beside him, small head stretched across one of Major's front legs. The old shepherd was awake. Watching. Rachel placed another folder on the desk. "Willow Creek can take him Friday." "Finn with him?" "No." "Why not?" "Finn is 6 weeks old. He has a whole placement track ahead of him. Major needs senior care. They're not the same case." Cole looked through the glass. "They don't know that." Rachel followed his eyes and said nothing. The desk phone rang. She picked it up. "Sentinel Ridge, Rachel Danner." Cole gathered the evaluation papers. Rachel listened. "Yes. We intake through several transport partners." A pause. Her expression changed. "Which dog?" Rachel pulled Finn's intake sheet from the folder. Cole stopped moving. "Say that number again." She listened, then covered the receiver. "Cole." He stepped closer. Rachel turned the page toward him. The caller was not asking for Finn. He had asked whether dog GP4117 was still at Sentinel Ridge. The number appeared once on Finn's intake sheet, in a box almost nobody used after arrival. Cole looked through the office window. Finn slept without moving. Major had lifted his head. Rachel kept the receiver against her ear another few seconds after Cole stepped closer. "You said Northline?" she asked. She listened, wrote something on the corner of Finn's intake sheet, then ended the call without giving the person anything more than confirmation that Sentinel Ridge handled dogs from several transport partners. The office felt smaller when she set the phone down. Outside the window, Finn was still asleep against Major's foreleg. "He said he was updating transport paperwork," Rachel said. "Asked whether GP4117 was still here." Cole looked at the number on the page. "Did he give a name?" "First name only." "Kevin. Could be real. Could be the first name he saw on a coffee cup." Rachel pulled up Northline Working Dog Transit on the office computer and called the published number. This time, the woman who answered sounded bored in the ordinary way of someone handling too many schedules before breakfast. She checked dispatch, then said nobody there had called Sentinel Ridge that morning. A subcontractor might have used a personal phone. She could not say. Rachel wrote that down too. Cole watched her circle the time of the call. "Problem? Maybe." She closed the file. "Maybe not." That answer should have satisfied him. It did not. But Major's transfer was 3 days away, and that problem had a date attached to it. Cole spent part of the morning on the phone with Willow Creek Senior Canine Home. He asked questions that made the intake coordinator pause before answering. How slick were the floors? How many senior dogs shared an indoor run? Could a dog choose distance from staff? How were arthritic dogs exercised when snow made the yard difficult? Was there overnight coverage? Did they force social interaction? The answers were good. Better than good in some ways. Heated flooring in the senior wing. Low ramps. A veterinarian who came twice a week. 4 dogs to 1 caregiver during the day. Quiet rooms for animals that did not want company. He'd be safe here, the coordinator said. Cole believed her. That was the problem. If Willow Creek had been careless, crowded, or badly run, Cole could have opposed the transfer without examining himself. Instead, he had to decide whether safety alone was enough for a dog who still watched one small puppy put as if the rest of the world had become optional. Friday came under a thin gray sky. The Willow Creek van arrived just after 9, clean white sides streaked with road salt. A woman named Denise climbed out wearing a navy winter coat and practical boots. She did not approach Major directly. Cole noticed that first. She stood sideways, spoke to Rachel, then let Major see the ramp before anyone asked him to move. "Good handling," Cole said quietly. Rachel glanced at him. "I told you they were good." Major walked across the yard with Cole holding the leash. The old shepherd's gait was stiff for the first few steps, then settled. He showed no fear of Denise, no hard stare, no raised hackles. At the rear of the van, he stopped. The ramp began inches from his front paws. Cole waited. Denise waited. Snow blew in a thin sheet beneath the vehicle. Major looked into the van, then back across the yard. Denise offered no food. She simply gave him time. Major did not move. A clatter came from the puppy area. One of the staff had opened the inner gate to carry out empty bowls. Finn found the gap before anyone found Finn. The puppy shot through, ears uneven, body low with speed. "Finn!" someone called. A technician stepped in before he reached the vehicle lane and redirected him with both hands low to the ground. Finn spun in the snow, looked toward Major, then found Cole several yards away. The puppy ran straight at him. 2 small paws landed against Cole's shin. Finn pressed his chest into Cole's combat boot, then twisted around to look at Major again. Cole looked down. Finn did not know what a transfer was. He did not understand Willow Creek, kennel capacity, senior placement, or paperwork. He only knew that Major was somewhere he did not usually stand, and Cole was close enough to touch. Finn had found the 2 points he trusted, and was trying, in the only language he had, to keep them in the same picture. Major looked at Finn, then at Cole. 48 hours, Cole said. Rachel's expression tightened. For what? To give you another answer. Cole, 48. She looked at Major, then Finn, then back at him. You get 48. Cole did not spend them pretending affection could pay veterinary bills. He went home and measured the cabin's doors, checked the fence line, tested the heater in the mudroom, and wrote down the cost of senior food, medication, routine exams, and winter traction mats. He moved a rack of tools farther from the back entrance. He checked his work schedule against feeding times. He stood in the bedroom doorway and realized the house had been arranged for one person so completely that even an extra water bowl would change its geometry. That night he slept badly, not because of the dogs, but because choosing them felt more dangerous than wanting them. The next morning he drove back to Sentinel Ridge without announcing his decision. Major was in the outer yard. Cole stopped at the gate. The old shepherd stood several yards away, watching snow gather along the fence. Cole did not pat his leg or reach for a treat. He said one word. Major. Major turned his head. For several seconds, nothing happened. Then he walked over. Slow. Stiff. Deliberate. The leash remained loose when Cole clipped it on. Cole felt something shift inside him that had nothing to do with training success. Major had not been lured, pressured, or managed into that choice. He had simply made it. 48 hours after asking for time, Cole placed an adoption application on Rachel's desk. She read his name, then looked up. You sure? No. Rachel waited. Cole added, still doing it? Finn chose that moment to appear beyond the office glass with the end of a technician's glove in his mouth. The technician reached for it. Finn backed away, delighted by the sudden existence of a game. Cole nodded toward him. And him? Rachel actually laughed once. He's 6 weeks old. I know. No, I mean, he literally cannot go home with you yet. Veterinary clearance, age requirement, observation. At least another couple of weeks. Cole looked at Finn, chewing the glove's thumb. I can wait. Rachel's eyebrows rose. Cole gave her a look. That sentence hurt, didn't it? She asked. More than it should. She marked Cole as Finn's intended adopter, pending clearance. Major's paperwork would begin immediately. For Finn, they opened the intake file again. That was when Rachel found the second sheet. The first intake form said GP 415 had been found with several puppies near a roadside rest area after a transport confusion. The second listed a veterinary holding facility as the origin and described the same puppy as transferred after a documentation problem. Same date, same temporary number, different history. Rachel set the pages side by side. One of these is wrong, Cole said. At least one. She went through the vaccination records, transport copies, and clipped notes. A small folded slip fell from behind the medical sheet. Rachel opened it. 2 words were written in dark block letters. Do not scan. Below them was a microchip number. Cole took the paper without touching anything else in the file. Why write down a chip number and tell people not to scan it? Rachel checked with the veterinary room. Nobody remembered making the note. The technician who had handled Finn's first exam said the scanner had not been used because the transport paperwork already listed the puppy as unverified intake. No one had thought much of it at the time. Sentinel Ridge received messy paperwork more often than anyone liked. But two different origin stories were no longer just messy. Cole looked through the office window. Finn had lost interest in the glove and was trying to drag a rope toy twice his length across the floor. Major watched from the other side of the partition. Rachel closed the folder. Cole headed for the door. "Cole," he turned. Rachel held up the slip of paper. "If this is only an administrative mistake," she looked at the words again. Why was somebody afraid of a scanner? Finn crossed the cabin threshold at a run, hit the smooth wood floor, lost all 4 feet, and slid sideways into a basket of winter gloves. He emerged with one glove in his mouth and the expression of a dog who believed the accident had gone exactly as planned. Cole Barrett closed the door against the cold and looked down at him. Good start. 2 weeks had passed since he filed the adoption papers. Finn was now a little over 8 weeks old, cleared by the veterinarian and growing almost visibly from day to day. His sable coat had darkened along the back. His front paws still looked too large for the rest of him, and one ear stood with determination, while the other leaned sideways as if refusing to commit. Finn dragged the glove under the kitchen table, abandoned it for a piece of firewood, discovered the firewood was heavier than expected, then went outside and tried to catch clumps of snow falling from the porch roof. Major did none of those things. The old German shepherd stood on the porch while snow gathered along the dark fur of his shoulders. Cole had left the door open. He did not pull the leash. He did not call again. Major studied the room from outside, the wood stove, the kitchen, the narrow hallway, the front windows. Then he stepped in. He checked the front door first, then the back, then the hallway, and windows. Only after that did he lower himself onto the old rug near the entrance. Cole had bought an orthopedic bed and placed it beside the wood stove. Major sniffed it once and ignored it. The first night he slept beside the front door. The second night, he did the same. Cole noticed because he was awake for enough of both. His own bedroom sat at the end of the hall, but some nights he still woke after an hour and found himself listening for sounds that had no business in Grey Pine Valley. Major listened too. A car passed on the county road. Both heads lifted. Snow slid from the roof. Both waited. The difference was Finn, asleep upside down in the middle of the living room, with his stomach exposed to the world and one paw resting on a stolen sock. Cole stood in the hallway one night and understood that Major had chosen the same kind of life he had. Know the exits. Hear the room before it hears you. Never give sleep more trust than necessary. Cole did what he knew how to do. He built a schedule: breakfast at 7, Major's short morning walk before Finn's supervised play, rest after feeding. No climbing on Major when the old dog was sleeping. No following Cole into the workshop unless invited. Finn treated the schedule as a collection of suggestions. By the third day, Cole had retrieved 2 gloves from beneath the couch, 1 rag from behind the stove, and a bootlace from Finn's mouth. Finn climbed onto Major's new bed, even though Major would not use it, turned 3 circles, and fell asleep in the center. Major walked past without comment. Later that afternoon, Finn ran through the kitchen too fast, lost traction, and slid directly into Major's front legs. The puppy froze on his side. Major opened one eye. Finn did not move. Major placed one broad paw across Finn's ribs and closed his eye again. Finn remained trapped for 3 seconds, then relaxed, as if this arrangement had always been acceptable. Cole laughed. The sound came out before he could stop it. Major lifted his head. Cole looked away, almost embarrassed. Don't encourage him. A few days later, Cole was repairing the snowblower in the workshop. The side door stood open enough for Finn to watch from the cabin doorway. Major lay farther back in the mudroom, where the floor was warmer. Cole loosened a stubborn bolt. The wrench slipped, It struck the steel tray below the engine with a hard, metallic crack. The workshop changed shape, not completely. Cole could still see the workbench. He could still smell old oil and cold pine. But underneath it came another place. Twisted metal, dust suspended in hot air. The pressure of a blast still inside his bones. Dylan was somewhere behind him, then ahead of him, turning back. Cole's hand stopped over the machine. Finn trotted into the workshop, then halted. The puppy looked at Cole, uncertain. Major came behind him. Major did not rush. He moved stiffly across the concrete, stepped beside Cole, and stood with his left side touching Cole's knee. His head faced the open door. Cole lowered one hand. Coarse winter coat. Warmth. A living animal breathing against his leg. "Workshop," Cole said. Major stayed still. "Winter." Finn sneezed near the snowblower. "Major." The old dog's ear moved. "Finn?" The room became only one room again. Cole took his hand from Major's back. "All right?" Major did not leave. He lowered himself onto the concrete beside Cole and remained there while Cole finished tightening the bolt. Finn eventually stole the cleaning rag and escaped toward the house. Major watched him go, but stayed. Cole noticed. For the first time, Major had chosen Cole when Finn did not need him. The question about Finn's paperwork remained. Cole did not like leaving unanswered things near anything he cared about. He took both intake sheets and the do not scan note to Dr. Mara Ellison later that week. Mara worked from a small veterinary clinic that handled many of Sentinel Ridge's dogs. She was 42, with dark hair clipped back loosely and one natural streak of silver at her right temple. Her scrub top was muted teal, and she moved around nervous dogs without approaching them head-on. She read both intake forms before touching the scanner. "One says roadside recovery," Mara said. "The other says veterinary holding facility. Same date. Same dog. That would be impressive." Cole did not smile. Mara unfolded the smaller note. "And somebody wrote the chip number while telling the next person not to check the chip." "Exactly." She crouched beside Finn. Finn tried to investigate her stethoscope. Mara redirected him with 2 fingers and passed the scanner over his shoulders. It beeped immediately. Finn looked offended by the noise. Mara checked the display. "Chip works. So why the note? I can tell you what's true before I tell you why." She searched the registry. The information attached to the number was incomplete, but the manufacturer could trace the production batch. After 2 phone calls and nearly an hour of waiting, Mara turned her monitor toward Cole. The chip had been sold to Stonebridge Shepherds, a licensed working line breeder in the state. Mara called the owner, Evelyn Hart. Evelyn's voice changed when Mara read the number. Stonebridge had produced a litter of 5 German Shepherd puppies that winter. They had been chipped early for veterinary tracking. When the puppies were about 5 weeks old, a cold snap damaged the heating system in Stonebridge's puppy building. Evelyn arranged a temporary transfer to a reproductive veterinary facility 70 miles away until repairs were finished. Northline Working Dog Transit handled the trip. The puppies never arrived. According to Northline, a subcontracted route had been disrupted during a mid-route transfer. Crates and paperwork had been redirected. Then conflicting records began appearing. Stonebridge reported all 5 puppies missing. Insurance investigators reviewed the transport chain. Northline blamed subcontractor failures. No one produced enough evidence to prove where the dogs had gone. Cole looked at Finn. The puppy was under the exam table chewing the end of his own leash. "He could be one of them," Evelyn said over speakerphone. "Could," Mara corrected gently. Evelyn agreed. "The chip makes it likely. Not certain." Mara recommended DNA parentage testing against Stonebridge's breeding pair. Cole answered before anyone asked him twice. "Do it." Mara looked at him. "If he belongs to Stonebridge legally, I know." Finn crawled out and put both front paws on Cole's boot. Cole looked down. If he belongs to them, we do the right thing. The words were clean. Saying them was easier than imagining them. Major lay near the clinic door, silver muzzle resting on his paws. Finn wandered over and dropped beside him. Major shifted just enough to make space. That evening, Cole was putting wood into the stove when Evelyn called again. "I forgot something," she said. Cole glanced toward the living room. Finn was asleep against Major's shoulder. "What? Did Sentinel Ridge receive him alone?" "No, his paperwork mentions other puppies. 3 were transferred out before anyone started asking questions." Silence. Then Evelyn said, "My litter had 5. Cole looked at Finn. Evelyn continued quietly. "If he's one of mine, Cole, there aren't 3 others. There are 4. By Monday morning, Rachel Danner had 3 white boards in the Sentinel Ridge conference room, and no clean version of what had happened to Finn. One board held the 5 Stonebridge puppies. The second held the rescue destinations that appeared in the transport records. The third was mostly dates, arrows, and question marks. Cole stood near the window with Major beside his chair, and Finn asleep under the table. The puppy had spent 20 minutes trying to steal the cap from a marker, and had finally exhausted himself. Rachel tapped the first board. One rescue confirmed receiving a German Shepherd puppy during the same week. Finn arrived at Sentinel Ridge, but the chip on that dog did not match the number on the transfer form. Another organization had a signed transfer document for a puppy it insisted had never crossed its door. A third dog appeared to have been adopted legally by a family who had no idea there was anything unusual about its history. "So we have dogs," Cole said, "and we have paperwork." Rachel nodded. "They just don't always belong to each other." That was why Rachel had called Tessa Monroe. Tessa arrived before noon carrying a brown canvas document pouch and enough winter road salt on her boots to mark the path from the parking lot. She was 38, small and quick, with copper-brown hair braided down her back and rectangular glasses that kept sliding down her nose when she leaned over paperwork. She coordinated transports for an independent rescue network and understood the quiet machinery behind moving animals legally from one place to another. Health certificates, route codes, kennel seals, handoff signatures, destination confirmations. "A clean transport leaves a trail," she said. "Not because everyone is perfect, because too many people touch it for everything to disappear." She spent the next 2 hours comparing Northline records with Sentinel Ridge intake copies and the documents Rachel had received from other rescues. Nothing looked dramatic by itself. That bothered Tessa more than a single obvious forgery would have. A route code had been changed after departure. One kennel seal was listed under 2 different numbers at separate checkpoints. A destination had confirmed receipt by email, but had no corresponding intake record. 2 chip numbers had later been registered to owners who did not appear anywhere in the transport chain. Tessa found 3 working line dogs that vanished from rescue records and resurfaced months later in private protection listings under different names. "Most Northline runs are clean," Rachel said. Tessa looked at her. "That's how you hide the dirty ones." Cole disliked that answer because it changed the scale of the problem. A single mistake could be fixed. A bad employee could be found. A pattern meant somebody had learned exactly how much disorder a legal system could absorb without anyone calling it a crime. Tessa reached for Finn's folder and stopped when she saw the folded note. "Do not scan." She read it twice. "I've seen this." Cole straightened. "Where?" "Not here. On transport crates. Years ago." She explained that dispatch sometimes marked "animals do not scan." Registry error when 2 chips had been entered into a database or when a registry transfer had not yet cleared. At the time, the explanation had seemed dull enough to be true. "Except Finn's chip works," Mara said from the speakerphone Rachel had placed in the center of the table. And the manufacturer record was consistent. Tessa took off her glasses. Then maybe the note wasn't protecting the system from a bad chip. Cole looked at her. Tessa folded the slip again. Maybe it was protecting bad paperwork from a good one. She called Evan Maddox from the hallway. Cole heard only Tessa's side at first. Short questions, long silences. When she returned, her expression had changed. He used to subcontract for Northline. Used to, Rachel asked, until he argued about route changes. Tessa put the call on speaker after Evan agreed. His voice was careful, the way people sound when they are measuring the cost of every sentence. He confirmed that some dogs had arrived at handoff points, with instructions not to scan them because of registry problems. He also remembered being told to make unscheduled stops at Grapevine County Exhibition Grounds, a fair complex that sat mostly empty through winter. Drivers sometimes handed over crates or small trailers to operations staff and waited outside. How long? Cole asked. 15 minutes, maybe 30. What happened inside? I don't know. Evan paused. But seals changed sometimes. Cole looked at Tessa. You reported it? Another silence. I asked questions. I lost the routes. Evan had a wife and 2 children. He made it clear he was not ready to sign anything. Not yet. Cole wanted to push. Tessa shook her head once before he could. Thank you, Evan, she said, and ended the call. The DNA result arrived that afternoon. Mara drove it over herself, rather than sending another email into a room already full of them. Finn was a confirmed offspring of Stonebridge's breeding pair. No probability language remained. Finn was one of the 5 missing puppies. Evelyn Hart arrived at Sentinel Ridge the following morning. She wore a deep navy barn jacket, winter boots, and her silver blonde hair in a low braid. Cole had prepared himself for a fight over ownership. Evelyn gave him none. She watched Finn play in the training room, watched the puppy run to Major when a cart rattled past, then watched Finn leave Major and come to Cole when Cole crouched. He knows where home is, she said. Stonebridge had already received an insurance settlement after the loss. Evelyn was willing to sign a conditional transfer once the county confirmed there was no legal obstacle. Cole felt the pressure in his chest loosen. Then Evelyn looked toward the whiteboard, holding the other 4 dogs. Keeping Finn doesn't answer that. By then, they had a working count. Finn was safe with Cole. One littermate was probably living with a family that had purchased the dog in good faith, pending DNA confirmation. Another appeared to be with a legitimate private trainer, but the chip under that dog's current identity did not match the Stonebridge records. 2 remained unlocated. For the first time, Cole was no longer trying to prove Finn belonged with him. He was looking at 4 other spaces on a board and wondering who had decided those dogs could disappear between one signature and the next. The anonymous complaint arrived before lunch. It went to the county licensing office and copied 2 members of Sentinel Ridge's board. The complaint accused the center of keeping animals under incomplete paperwork, mishandling transport records, and placing 2 dogs with a man who had a history of instability. Cole read that line twice. Nobody had written his name. Nobody needed to. One board member suggested Finn should return to Sentinel Ridge until the ownership review was complete. Cole stood so fast his chair hit the wall. No. Rachel stepped between the table and him, not physically blocking him, simply taking the space his anger was trying to fill. Cole. They're using something they know nothing about. I know. Then why are we discussing it? Rachel's voice stayed level. Because liability doesn't stop existing because someone used it badly. Cole's jaw tightened. Rachel lowered her voice. If they want to prove you're unstable, don't do the work for them. Outside, a county snowplow crossed the parking lot. The steel blade dropped onto asphalt with a brutal metallic crash. Cole lost the room for 1 second, then another. Major rose from beside the wall. The old shepherd did not look toward the snowplow. He turned toward Cole. Finn woke under the table and moved straight to Major's chest. Cole placed his hand on Major's shoulder. Gray pine. Cold air through the window seam. Parking lot. Major's winter coat under his palm. Winter. Finn's warm body pressed against Major's leg. Dogs. Cole breathed. Then he looked at Rachel. Continue. He sat back down. Nobody applauded. Nobody made the moment larger than it was. That helped. Rachel contacted Sheriff Nolan Pierce that afternoon. Pierce was 53, broad through the shoulders, with a brown-gray mustache and the patient expression of a man who preferred facts that could survive other people's excitement. He did not promise raids, warrants, or arrests. He asked for copies. Tessa gave him transport anomalies. Mara provided the chip trace and DNA confirmation. Evelyn brought Stonebridge's original ownership records and the old loss report. Pierce opened a preliminary case and contacted County Animal Control. Right now, he told Cole, you have a pattern. My job is to find out whether it becomes evidence. Tessa found one more thing before they left. The rescue network still had limited access to an old transport portal used for historical route review. In the login history, one operations account had opened the file containing GP 4117 several times before the strange phone call to Sentinel Ridge. The account belonged to Grant Sayer, Northline's regional operations manager. Cole looked at the timestamps. Grant had been checking Finn's route before anyone at Sentinel Ridge knew there was a mystery. Late that afternoon, Evan Maddox finally agreed to meet Pierce, but only privately. Before leaving Sentinel Ridge, he stopped at the conference room door. A photograph of Finn at 6 weeks old was clipped to the whiteboard. Evan stared at it. Tessa noticed. You recognize him? Evan stepped closer and pointed to Finn's neck. When I saw this puppy, he had a yellow collar. Cole turned toward him. Evan kept looking at the photograph. And he wasn't on my truck. Where was he? Evan swallowed once. Exhibition grounds. Evan Maddox chose the back room of the Grapevine County substation because it had no windows facing the parking lot. Cole noticed that before he noticed anything else. Evan sat at the small table with both hands around a scratched steel thermos, burgundy work jacket still zipped to the throat. Sheriff Nolan Pierce sat across from him with a recorder, a legal pad, and the patience of a man who knew frightened witnesses talked badly when rushed. Tessa Monroe stood near the filing cabinet. Cole stayed by the door. Evan looked once at Cole, then down at the photograph of Finn clipped inside the folder. I saw that puppy at the exhibition grounds, he said. Not on my manifest. Pierce asked him to start from the beginning. Months earlier, Evan had been driving a winter route for Northline. The trailer held 6 listed dogs moving between 2 veterinary partners and a private trainer. Dispatch ordered him to make an unscheduled stop at Grapevine County Exhibition Grounds, where Northline rented storage space during the off-season. Evan was told to park behind Warehouse C and wait while operations staff checked crates and corrected paperwork. He waited 20 minutes. Then he went looking for a restroom and passed an open service door. Inside were several puppy crates that were not listed on his route. One held a sable German Shepherd puppy wearing a yellow collar. Could have been another dog, Evan said. I know that. Tessa slid Finn's 6-week photograph closer. Evan tapped the neck. But that's the one I remember. He had asked the site supervisor why the puppies were there. The answer had been simple. Registry correction hold. Evan asked why registry problems required changing kennel seals. 2 weeks later, his regular Northline routes disappeared. The company blamed scheduling changes. Evan stopped asking. This time, he signed the statement. That one signature did not prove everything, but it changed the shape of what Pierce already had. Tessa spent the next day mapping access levels inside Northline's system. Grant Sayer, the regional operations manager, could view pedigree, declared value, age, health status, early working evaluations, routes, destinations, and special handling notes. The missing dogs were not random. The dogs most likely to vanish were young, healthy, working line animals that could be resold for far more than ordinary rescue placements. At certain authorized service stops, crates could be taken briefly out of driver custody without raising alarms. A seal changed. A route code changed. A chip was not scanned because the paperwork said registry error. A dog continued under a different identity. Finn had been one of the mistakes. Tessa reconstructed enough of the old route to explain the two intake stories. The Stonebridge litter had been diverted during the veterinary transfer. Finn received the temporary identity GP417 and was supposed to move through a placement partner connected to the scheme. But a relief dispatcher, working from an outdated routing table, sent GP417 from a veterinary holding facility to Sentinel Ridge instead. One intake sheet reflected the real holding facility. The roadside rest area story had been added later as cover. Cole stared at the route map. So the first call wasn't because we found them? No, Tessa said. They were already looking for him. That mattered. Grant's people had tried to retrieve Finn before Mara scanned the chip, before the DNA result, before Cole knew Stonebridge existed. What had looked like someone reacting to an investigation was older than the investigation itself. Pierce had already sent Northline a preservation notice for specific transport and account records. Grant could not know exactly how much the county had, but he would know questions had become formal. Finn still carried his original chip. His DNA connected Stonebridge directly to GP417. The anonymous complaint now made more sense, too. If Finn had been forced back into institutional custody, someone using forged transport correction paperwork might have had a cleaner chance to move him again. Rachel had refused. Evelyn had started the ownership transfer. That door was closing. 2 days later, Cole saw the gray SUV. It was parked near Mara's clinic when he picked up Finn after a routine check. Nothing illegal about that. The driver remained inside. Cole left. 20 minutes later, the same SUV appeared several vehicles behind him on the county road. It turned away before Cole reached the cabin. He reported it to Pierce rather than following it. The decision irritated him for the rest of the evening. 3 days later, the SUV passed the cabin road twice. Pierce increased patrols when staffing allowed, but Gray Pine Valley had many public roads, and no judge would sign a warrant because a gray vehicle had driven past a house. Cole understood. He still replaced one gate hinge, checked the exterior lights, and added a heavier lock to the workshop. The mudroom latch remained on his list. He had bought the replacement hardware. He had not installed it yet. At home, life refused to behave like evidence. Finn had discovered the rope toy. He carried it to Major one snowy afternoon and dropped it directly on the old dog's front paws. Major stood and walked away. Finn followed. He dropped the rope again. Major moved to the porch. Finn followed again. Cole watched from the woodpile. "Take the hint," he told the puppy. Finn did not. On the fourth attempt, Major picked up one end. Finn froze in surprise, then pulled with his entire body. Major barely moved. Finn dug all 4 paws into the snow and produced a serious little growl that would have frightened nothing larger than a mitten. Major held for several seconds, then opened his mouth. Finn flew backward into a snowbank. Cole laughed. Finn emerged with snow on his nose and immediately returned for another attempt. Major looked at Cole. For the first time since Harlan's death, there was something in the old dog's face that was not vigilance, tolerance, or grief. It was almost amusement. That evening, the weather service upgraded the incoming storm. Cole filled fuel cans, tested the generator, put Major's medication beside the kitchen sink, checked flashlights, filled water containers, and brought extra dog food inside. Pierce called before dark. "Keep the gate locked." "It is." "Doors?" "Yes." "Cole, I heard you." The storm reached the cabin after 10. Snow drove sideways across the windows. Wind moved through the pines in long, heavy waves. The power flickered twice and held. Finn slept near the stove. Major rested closer to Cole than to the front door now, though his head lifted whenever the house shifted under the wind. Near midnight, something cracked outside. A pine branch dropped against the workshop roof and caught a loose sheet of metal on the way down. The metal struck concrete. The sound ripped through Cole. The cabin vanished at the edges. Heat. Dust. Metal folded inward. Dylan turning back. Cole stopped breathing correctly. Major was beside him before Cole registered movement. The old shepherd pressed close to Cole's leg. Then another sound came through the storm, a faint squeak from the mudroom. Finn's head came up. The old latch lifted from outside with a thin tool. The door opened only a few inches. Cold air carried the smell of food and the familiar squeak of a toy. Finn ran toward it. Major turned too late. The puppy slipped through the gap. Major surged after him. Cole dragged himself back into the room. "Major!" The old dog was already outside. Cole reached the porch seconds later. Snow erased distance. Major stood near the side yard, facing the service track behind the property. Finn was gone. Cole's first thought was keys, truck, road. "Move." Major crossed in front of him, turned toward the track, then looked back at Cole. Again. Track. Cole. Track. Cole looked at his own hand. It was shaking. Driving into a whiteout like this would not save Finn if Cole put his truck in a ditch 50 yards from home. He called Pierce. The choice felt worse than fear. Within minutes, Cole brought Finn's blanket outside. Major sniffed it, then took the scent across the side yard. The old dog moved with purpose, but not speed. Nose low through blowing snow. Cole followed on leash. They reached the service track and continued several hundred yards before Major stopped. He circled once, twice, tried left, then right. Nothing. The scent ended where tire marks pressed into the snow. Cole did not ask Major to perform a miracle. He crouched near the impressions and saw a broken piece of orange plastic half buried beside them. A kennel seal. Pierce arrived with a deputy shortly after. They photographed the tire marks, bagged the seal, and opened a stolen dog report. Tessa identified the seal type as one Northline used regularly, but Pierce refused to treat that as enough. County maintenance cameras showed a snow utility vehicle towing a small trailer away from the service road. A fuel station camera farther east caught the same vehicle. Part of the plate was visible. The vehicle was registered to a subcontractor connected to Northline. Evan recognized the trailer configuration. Tessa produced old route documents showing that trailer type assigned repeatedly to exhibition grounds transfers. County records showed Warehouse C leased to an LLC tied to Northline Logistics. By then, Pierce already had Evan's signed statement, Stonebridge's original theft report, the DNA result, Finn's original chip, route anomalies, Grant's account activity, the stolen dog report, the seal, the footage, and the property connection. He called the on-call prosecutor. Cole waited in the cabin while Major stood beside the door. Waiting tasted like failure. Cole knew that taste too well. Pierce came back from the patrol car 20 minutes later. "We're asking for an emergency warrant. How long?" "As long as it takes." Cole looked toward his own truck. Major disappeared into the living room. For one bad second, Cole thought the old dog had finally reached his limit. Major returned carrying the rope toy Finn had dragged through the snow that afternoon. He walked to Cole and placed it against Cole's hand. Pierce opened the rear door of the county SUV. "Your truck stays here." Cole looked at him. "You're coming with us." Major stepped into the vehicle first. Cole closed his hand around Finn's rope and followed. Grapevine County Exhibition Grounds looked almost harmless under snow. In summer, the place held livestock shows, school competitions, food trailers, and enough parked trucks to turn the county road into a slow-moving line of dust. Tonight, the grandstands were white and empty. The indoor arena sat dark behind drifting snow. Low barns, storage buildings, service garages, and loading lanes stretched across the grounds with only a few security lamps burning through the storm. Warehouse C stood near the far end beside a row of utility sheds. Nothing about it looked hidden. That was the first thing Cole hated about it. A place did not need fences topped with wire to hide something. Sometimes it needed a lease, a lock, and paperwork nobody had reason to question. The emergency warrant had been approved while Pierce drove. 2 county deputies arrived ahead of them, followed by animal control officers and a state investigator, because the transport records could cross county lines. Pierce parked Cole well outside the working perimeter. "You stay here until I tell you otherwise." Cole looked toward Warehouse C. "Finn could be in there." "I know. Then use me." Pierce shut the driver's door. "I am. Right now, I'm using you to not make this harder." Cole wanted to argue. Major stood beside him on leash, silver muzzle pointed toward the distant buildings. The old shepherd was not pulling. He was simply watching. Cole had spent years being trained to move toward danger. Standing still while other people moved ahead felt almost physically wrong. It carried the same poison as waiting after the blast years ago. Somebody else was moving, and Cole was not. Officers crossed the loading lane. A gust caught a roll-up steel door on the arena building. The door dropped several feet and slammed against its lower rail. The sound struck Cole before thought did. The staging area blurred. Snow became dust. A vehicle lay twisted at an angle that made no sense. Cole was down, body refusing an order his mind had already given. Dylan was farther away, beyond the worst of it. Then Dylan looked back. Cole remembered that now. Not every detail, just the turn of his head. The decision. Dylan coming back. Cole's breath shortened. This time he knew what was happening while it happened. He put one hand on Major's back. "Grapevine." Major's coat was coarse beneath his palm. "Snow." Blue-white lights from a county truck flashed against the arena wall. "Major." The old dog shifted his weight, but stayed. "Finn." Cole looked directly at the light. Now. The memory did not disappear. It stopped replacing the world. Cole remained where Pierce had told him to remain. 20 minutes later, Pierce returned. "Warehouse is secure enough to start the search. We've got dogs inside. We've also got records." Cole moved before Pierce finished. Pierce raised one hand. "You still follow instructions? Then give me one." Inside Warehouse C, the air smelled of dry feed, cold rubber, disinfectant, and heated metal. Rows of transport crates occupied one section. Some held dogs waiting quietly. Others stood empty with identification cards clipped to the doors. Water bowls were present. Bedding was clean enough. There was no spectacle of cruelty. What made Cole's stomach turn was how organized everything looked. On folding tables lay stacks of registration forms, scanners, unused microchips, pedigree printouts, and packages of kennel seals. A wallboard listed transport windows beside numbers instead of names. Another table held removed collars in clear plastic bins. A state investigator was photographing ledgers, while another officer secured computers. Tessa had been right. The operation did not depend on every Northline transport being corrupt. It depended on a few selected animals disappearing inside an otherwise ordinary system. Pierce pointed to a set of documents already photographed. Sayer could see declared value, early evaluations, health information, destination. He knew which dogs were worth diverting. The records made the method clear. At selected service stops, a crate left normal driver custody. The dog inside was removed. A new seal was recorded. Route paperwork changed. In some cases, another dog continued under the original manifest. In others, a rescue intake identity filled the gap. Some animals received a second chip. Some kept the original, but were registered under altered ownership data. Intermediate facilities were occasionally told not to scan because of a supposed registry error. Cole looked at a printed instruction clipped to one file. Do not scan. The words no longer looked mysterious. They looked practical. Finn had survived the system because someone had made a mistake before Grant's people finished changing his identity. An animal control officer approached with a transport pad, sealed in a clean evidence bag, until it had been photographed. We've narrowed the puppy movement to 3 kennel sections. This pad came from the holding area. If your older dog knows the puppy, he may help us choose where to start, but only inside cleared space. Cole crouched beside Major. You're not 20 anymore. Major looked past him. The officer let Major investigate the pad, then led them into a cleared corridor. Major moved slowly. His hips had stiffened after the storm and the long night. At the first door, he sniffed beneath the gap and continued. At the second, he stopped, checked again, then moved on. At the third, his whole body changed. Major froze, not in fear. Focus. His nose pressed toward the narrow space beneath the door. A low, broken sound came from his chest. Then, something scratched rapidly inside. A puppy cried once. Cole's hand tightened on the leash. Finn! The officer opened the door after another deputy confirmed the room was clear. 3 travel crates stood inside. Finn was in the middle one. The puppy was dry and unharmed, but his body shook so hard the crate door rattled. One ear stood. The other had collapsed sideways. The moment the latch opened, Finn launched out. He ran past Cole, straight into Major. The impact pushed Major's hindquarters down. Cole caught the old dog by the harness before his legs folded fully. Finn shoved himself beneath Major's neck, pawing at his chest, making small, breathless sounds. Major curved around him despite the stiffness in his hips and lowered his silver muzzle across Finn's back. For several seconds, Cole only held Major steady. The shape was familiar, the old dog surrounding the young one, but this time there were no rescue center walls between them. Finn finally turned. He saw Cole and scrambled up against him, both front paws hitting Cole's chest. Cole caught him. Gotcha. That was all. The recovered records answered more than Finn's location. One Stonebridge littermate had been sold to a family that appeared to have purchased the dog in good faith. Another was with a legitimate protection trainer under the wrong identity. A third puppy was in a separate transport kennel on the grounds and was recovered safely that night. The fourth had already gone to a buyer, but the ledger held an address, payment record, and transport date. For the first time, all 5 dogs had a trail. Grant Sayer was found in a small service office while officers secured computer equipment. He was 49, clean-shaven, ash blonde hair still neatly parted despite the hour. Slate gray field coat too clean for the warehouse around him. He had been attempting to delete local files when investigators entered. Now he stood near the office door, while Pierce read from the warrant inventory. Grant saw Finn, then Major, then Cole. His expression changed by less than a smile. This is going to look much simpler when lawyers explain it, Grant said. Pierce ignored him. Grant looked directly at Cole. You think those 2 dogs are going to fix what the war did to you? Cole felt the old response arrive with frightening clarity. Close distance. End threat. Do something. Major stood at his leg. Finn tucked beneath Major's chest. The old dog was exhausted, sore, and still choosing control. Cole looked at Grant. No. Grant waited. I never asked them to fix me. Cole placed one hand briefly on Finn's back. I just don't leave them behind. Then he turned away. Pierce and the investigators did the rest. On the drive home, Finn slept pressed against Major in the rear seat. The old dog's head rested above him. Snow thinned to light flakes along the county road. For several miles, Cole said nothing. Then he spoke. After the blast, I couldn't stand up. Pierce kept his eyes on the road. Dylan had made it farther out. Cole swallowed. He came back because I was still there. The words had lived in Cole for years without being said in that order. I kept thinking if I hadn't frozen, he wouldn't have needed to. Pierce was quiet for a while. Then he looked into the rearview mirror at Major and Finn. If Major froze tonight and Finn came back for him, would you make Major spend the rest of his life paying for that? Cole looked back. Major was asleep now. Finn's face was buried against the old dog's shoulder. Cole had no answer. But for the first time, the question sounded stronger than the accusation he had carried for years. At the cabin, Finn ran inside the moment Cole opened the door. Major stopped on the porch. Cole removed the leash. Major! The old shepherd looked through the doorway. Finn had turned around inside, waiting. Major did not move. Cole rested one hand on the open door. Home. Major looked at Finn, then at Cole. He stepped forward. His paws crossed the old rug beside the entrance. He kept walking. 3 weeks after the night at the exhibition grounds, Sentinel Ridge still looked like the same place from the county road. Snow sat along the fence lines. The east kennel heater made the same tired hum. Dogs barked when delivery trucks came through the gate, and somebody still forgot to refill the paper towel dispenser in the washroom at least twice a week. The changes were easier to see once a person stepped inside. Every intake dog was scanned before leaving the front room. Every transfer required 2 signatures on the kennel seal. Destination numbers were called and verified instead of copied from old records. Route changes had to be documented by 2 people. A handwritten "Do not scan" note meant nothing without veterinary documentation attached to it. Rachel Danner had turned one wall of the conference room into a transport checklist and told the board she did not care if it looked excessive. Excessive as explaining to a family why the dog on their paperwork was never the dog in the crate, she said. Nobody argued. The Northline investigation had widened beyond Grant Sayer. Financial records and computer logs pointed investigators toward other people who had helped move, register, or resell selected dogs. Not every person on those records had known what Grant was doing, and Pierce warned everyone not to turn suspicion into guilt. But the important part for Cole was simpler. The 5 Stonebridge puppies were no longer 5 missing spaces on a whiteboard. Finn remained with Cole. One littermate lived with a family that had bought the dog honestly. After DNA confirmation and corrected ownership paperwork, Evelyn Hart agreed the dog should stay there. Another was with a legitimate protection trainer who had never known the pedigree was false. The third had been recovered from the exhibition grounds and placed with a verified temporary foster. The fourth was traced through Grant's ledger to a buyer who cooperated once investigators showed him the original records. All 5 were accounted for. They did not all go back to Stonebridge. Evelyn said that was not the point. Getting the truth back doesn't mean taking every dog backward, she told Cole. He understood that better than he would have a month earlier. Evan Maddox returned to Sentinel Ridge too, though he seemed uncomfortable whenever anyone thanked him. Rachel asked him to help design a transport audit procedure because he knew where honest systems tended to become lazy. Evan agreed to come in twice a month, He still carried the scratched steel thermos. He still looked toward the parking lot before entering a room. Cole did not mistake caution for cowardice anymore. Some people needed time before they could stand in the place they once stepped away from. Cole went back to normal work, or something close to it. There was no ceremony, no plaque, no announcement over the kennel speakers. That suited him. One morning he worked with a young staff member and a retired patrol dog that reacted badly to dropped metal bowls. The handler called the dog stubborn after the third refusal to enter a narrow feeding room. Cole stopped him. "Don't call fear stubbornness." The young man frowned. "He's done this room before." "Doesn't matter." Cole watched the dog's shoulders, the way the ears shifted toward the metal rack. "Sometimes the body reacts before the mind knows it's safe." The handler nodded and widened the approach. Cole heard his own words after he said them. Once, he would have believed they applied only to dogs. Rachel found him later with a cardboard box from Major's old intake storage. "This should have gone home with you weeks ago." Inside were an old leather lead, a faded search patch, and one photograph in a plastic sleeve. Harlan Voss stood in snow search gear beside a much younger Major. Major's muzzle was dark then, his body lean and hard from work. Harlan wore a weathered tan field jacket and a dark red wool scarf. Neither man nor dog looked heroic. They looked cold, tired, and satisfied after a day that had gone well. Cole took the photograph home. He hung it near the front door. That same evening, he sat on the floor with Major's collar in his hands. Harlan's old tag still hung from the worn leather. Cole had never removed it. He added another small tag beside it. One side read, Major. The other read, Barrett. Major stood between Cole's knees and watched his hands. Finn was asleep in the kitchen after spending 20 minutes trying to carry an empty food bowl into the living room. Cole clipped the collar back into place. Major did not turn toward Finn. He did not check the door. He stepped forward and leaned his entire shoulder into Cole's leg. Cole rested a hand against the old dog's neck. "Yeah," he said quietly. "All right." Major stayed there. Finn changed too, though nobody would have called the changes dramatic. He still stole gloves. He still ran too fast across the kitchen. His ears had nearly decided what they were doing, though the left one tilted whenever he was tired. During a socialization session at Sentinel Ridge, an adolescent shepherd barked sharply from behind a barrier. Finn stopped. For an instant he turned toward Major the way he always had. Major stood several feet away and did not move to cover him. Finn hesitated. Then he looked at Cole. Cole crouched. Finn ran to him. Major followed at a walk. Cole put one hand on Finn's chest while the puppy recovered. He looked over Finn's head at Major. The old shepherd no longer needed to be the only wall Finn knew. A week later, Cole drove to the county hall alone except for Major. Finn stayed at Sentinel Ridge with Rachel for the morning because Cole wanted quiet. The Veterans Remembrance Wall stood in a plain stone courtyard behind the building. Cole had avoided it for years. Every previous visit had ended the same way. Dylan's name became a charge against him, and Cole supplied the verdict. This time, Major sat beside his leg. Cole found Dylan Reese. He placed his fingers against the engraved letters. "You came back for me." Wind moved lightly through the bare trees. Cole waited. "I think I understood that wrong for a long time." That was all. He did not apologize for surviving. He did not say it should have been him. When he walked away, Dylan's name remained on the wall, but the memory no longer ended only with the blast. For the first time, Cole could remember that Dylan had made a choice before he became a loss. Later that afternoon, Cole was repairing a small engine in the workshop when a neighbor dropped a metal toolbox beside the driveway. The clang hit hard. Cole's shoulders locked. For a moment came the old pieces. Vehicle, dust, Dylan turning back. but the workshop stayed around them. Cole felt the workbench beneath his palm, cold air through the open door. Pine. Finn appeared in the doorway. Major stood behind him. Grapevine, Cole said. His pulse was fast. Winter. The memory remained, but it did not move the walls. Workshop. Finn spotted a glove on the bench. Cole saw the decision forming in the puppy's face. Home. Finn stole the glove. Cole let out a breath that was almost a laugh. He picked up the wrench and returned to the engine. That night, snow began again. Finn slept on his back in the living room with the stolen glove across his chest. Cole went to bed. For years, on difficult nights, he had slept on the floor because it was hard, low, and close to the door. Tonight he stayed on the mattress. Major stopped in the bedroom doorway. Cole did not call him. The heater clicked. Wind moved softly against the cabin. Then Major's nails crossed the wood floor. Slow. Steady. He walked past the doorway, circled once beside the bed, and lay down. Not facing the hall, not guarding the exit, just close. Somewhere in the workshop, cold metal contracted with a sharp little tick. Cole opened his eyes. Major opened his. Finn slept through it. Cole lowered one hand beside the bed. Major lifted his silver muzzle and placed it into Cole's palm. Cole closed his eyes again. Dylan still belonged to Cole's past. Harlan still belonged to Major's. Neither had been replaced. But love for the dead no longer required the living to keep losing each other. Outside, snow covered Grapevine Valley. Inside the cabin were 3 steady breaths. And no one was guarding the door alone. Sometimes peace does not come from forgetting what hurt us. It comes when the past stops deciding how much of the present we are willing to love. Cole could not bring Dylan back, and Major could not return to the life he had with Harlan. But both learned that keeping a place in the heart for someone who is gone does not mean closing the door on those who are still here. In our own lives, healing may begin quietly, with one person who stays, one small reason to trust again, or one ordinary day when fear no longer makes the choice for us. If this story meant something to you, please share your thoughts in the comments and subscribe for more stories about loyalty, courage, and second chances. May peace find its way into the places in your life that have been waiting for it. If you have any feelings, thoughts, or suggestions about this story, would you share them in the comments below so we can listen, learn, and keep making these stories better?